Hey, my name is Marco Brown. I'm a divorce attorney in Salt Lake City. I own Brown Family Law. Here to talk to you, especially to attorneys, about how to make more money. So this is kind of the holy grail of being an attorney, right? We all want to make more cash, but most of us, especially solos, don't know how to do this. Now, I went through this same problem. I started my law firm in 2010, came here to Salt Lake, had absolutely no money, in fact, lots of debt. And we were here because my wife wanted to get her doctorate at the University of Utah. We lived here, we'd gone away, and we decided to come back. But it's 2010, I have no network, I have no clients, I have nothing. 2010 is a bad year. Large law firms in Chicago, New York, LA shutting down completely, and I decided to make a go of it. So I'm not the brightest guy, but thankfully it's worked out. But I can tell you in the beginning, it was absolutely terrible. I think I made $24,000 the first year as an attorney, and then it went up past that, but it took a long time. I remember I was making $60,000 a year first year out of law school working at an insurance defense firm. A job I hated, by the way, and got out of. That's why I started Brown Family Law. But it took me, 3 years, I think, just to get back to $60,000 a year, right? And then thankfully, as time went on, I figured out the business of law and the business of acquiring clients and this type of thing. Then my salary went up, and now it's orders of magnitude more than it used to be. But it's a learning process, and I wanted to go through that today. Maybe cut down the time that you, as a solo, require to reach a fairly good income. So what I mean by fairly good income is, right, so that's what I mean. This right here is really what I mean. That's a zero. $250,000. Okay, so we're gonna go over the math that allows you to make $250,000 a year as a solo, okay? Now, most solo attorneys, which account for 56% of total attorneys in the United States, make about, actually I'm going to turn this off, give me a second here. Okay, so most of them, and I have the numbers here, so just to make sure that I get them right, most make between $60K and $70K per year. Now, those of you who are making more, you might think that's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that people make that little money. I guarantee you that is correct. It is, multiple surveys have found this. Clio, that does not surveys, but actually does behavior data in attorneys, kind of finds the same thing. I think LegalZoom did a survey, found that the average solo attorney makes $63,000 a year, but that was back in 2015, so let's assume that's gone up. I'd say it's like 70, 75, something like that. Now we're going to use slightly different numbers as we go through this example today, but I got to tell you, $60,000, $70,000 for a solo is, it's about spot on. But even if I'm off, let's say I'm, off by like 25%, that's still less than 100K a year, okay? But the average really is between 60 and 70,000. So let's figure out how to take you from 60, 70,000 up to $250,000 per year. So let's do this math here. Okay, so let's lay out some things. So average attorney works, my handwriting's terrible, sorry, 8 hours in a day, okay? And bills 2.5 hours, okay? Now from that billing, the average attorney invoices 2.1 hours and ultimately collects 1.8 hours. Okay, which is a realization rate of, I think, 21% or something like that. Now this fluctuates every once in a while. But this is fairly stable data. So some years it's like 1.9 hours, some years it's 1.7 hours, some years like 2020, it was just the latest data that I was able to find from Clio is 1.8 hours. Okay, so not great. First things first. solo attorneys and just small firm attorneys, if you bill the frickin' hour, then don't cut it off, right? You're cutting off a ton of time here in your invoicing, and then you collect even less. So don't discount hours. Unless you make some sort of mistake, just don't discount hours. That's like lesson number one, do not discount hours. Okay, so these are averages for attorneys. That is going to be kind of our base, and then we're gonna run numbers off of this base. Okay. All right, here. So let's do some math. Okay, so we're going to assume 240 working days in a year. Okay, so if we have 1.8 hours collected per day by 240, that is 432 hours in a year. Again, that seems extraordinarily low. I know that, but this is actually higher than what LegalZoom found on their survey, which was 360 billed hours in a year for solos, okay? So this might be pretty generous, actually. Okay, so let's assume, though, it's 432 and $200 an hour. So $200 an hour is actually a pretty average number per hour for attorneys. So let's use that. That comes up to $64,000 per year. That is a 6 and not a 0. Okay, so that's $64,000 a year. Or no, man. I'm just bad at the math today. I apologize. So that's not 64,000. That is, in fact, 86,400 per year. Okay, so that's going to be our base, is the 86,400. So let's show you how you can go up from this number up to $250,000 in some fairly simple steps. Okay, so first one is going to be, you go from 1.8 hours per day to, so 1.8 is the average collected, but let's assume that you actually collected on the amount you billed, okay? And you collected at 100%. So you got to get your collections up, but let's make that assumption. So that's 2.5 hours per day, okay? So that'd be 2.5 times, let's make sure we got this in here, 240 days. That's 600 hours billed and collected. So we got 600 and then times 200. That is $120,000. Okay, so that'd be $120,000 in a year. So you can see it goes up from $86,400 to $120,000 in a year just by collecting at 100% on the amount that's actually billed. That is absolutely super cake. You don't need to make any changes whatsoever in the work you do or anything else. You need to just not write off your time, and you need to make the commitment to collect at 100%. Now, if you need to know how to collect at 100%, you can go see my other videos. I talk about like how to make that happen. If you need to contact me and talk to me about it, I'm more than willing to tell you exactly how to do it. We went from probably 50% collections, 60% when it was like me doing it, and I was really terrible at it, to I think we stand at 98%, 99% today. Okay, so that one thing, that one change will get you an additional quite a bit amount of money, okay? But we're still going up to 250. So we're at 120. Let's figure out how to go to 250. All right, this, I gotta tell you, is where the magic happens. Okay, so what we're assuming is $200 an hour. It's your bill rate, okay? So that's your bill rate. Let's assume that you raise your prices. So let's go from 200 to $295 per hour. Now I know what you're thinking. One, you probably don't bill $200 an hour, even though that's the average, but let's assume you do. You think that's an extra $95 per hour? This is really bugging me, so I'm going to do this. That's an extra $95 an hour. No one's going to pay that. I mean, it's essentially increasing your prices by a third. No one's going to do it. I'm here to tell you, yes, they will. They absolutely will. No one cares. Your clients do not care about your billable rate. They really don't. It doesn't even register with them. Your clients care about the retainer amount that you charge them. They do not care about your hourly rate. It just doesn't register with them. I stopped long ago telling clients potential clients during initial consultations what our hourly rate was. I don't even mention it. No one ever asks. And then we get to the retainer part and they never say anything. I mean, one out of like maybe 30 people who sign up with us ever ask, what's your hourly rate? They just don't care. It doesn't register at all. So you can go from 200 to 295. You're not really going to lose anything. You will lose some people. You lose about 3 to 5%, okay? But cool, like great, they can go find somebody else. 3 to 5% is nothing. You're still left with 95 to 97% of the people who would otherwise hire you at $200 an hour are going to hire you at $295 an hour, okay? So make this change. And here's the other thing, make it with all your clients, because if you have a retainer worth its salt, you have a clause in the retainer that says you can change your prices, okay? You've probably never done this. I don't think I ever did this before 2 years ago, but what I'm telling you is I wish I had done this before 2 years ago, okay? I wish I had raised my prices on everybody across the board. So go do it. You, again, will have some people that will fire you and go find somebody else, but I think when we did this, and we serve, 300 people a year, 300 divorces a year, somewhere around there. We had nobody fire us, and I think 2 people talked to us about it, or maybe 1, right? They just, you think this is a problem. Your clients do not see it as a problem, okay? So just go raise your price. Now, what you will find is if you go from like $295 to $305, you'll actually get more of a pushback than going from $200 to $295, which doesn't make any sense, but the human mind sees this thing as like packets of 100, and when you go from one 100 packet to another 100 packet, you'll tend to, some people will lose, but I mean, that's gonna be like 10%, okay? It's not gonna be a big deal. So just go raise your prices on potential clients hiring you, and then go raise your prices on your existing clients. You'll be totally fine. And here's the other thing, if you have paralegals, raise your prices on paralegals, okay? So if your paralegal's charging $120 an hour, raise your paralegal to $195 an hour or $199. No one's gonna care. Your clients are not gonna care at all, okay? So if you have a paralegal and you're a solo, like that's an additional revenue source that your clients are just not going to notice. So go raise the prices across the board. And let's look at the magic of what this does. Okay, so now we have 600 hours in a year. That's 2.5 hours per day times 240 days, work days in a year. So now we multiply that by 295, and we get to 177 per year. Now we're talking money, okay? So you've done 2 things at this point. One, you have decided to bill and collect for all the time that you have actually billed, okay? You don't need to do any additional work to do that, any additional lawyer work to do that. And then you have raised your prices. And it goes up from $86,400 to $177,000, okay? With these 2 changes, 2 very, very simple changes that are going to cost you almost no clients whatsoever, and it's not going to make it harder for people to hire you, okay? Those are the 2 changes. Now we're not to 250 yet, but we're getting close, okay, with just those 2 changes that, again, require no additional work on your part. Okay, now, so we are still $73,000 short. Okay, 250 minus 177 is 73,000. So how do you get the additional 73,000? Okay, well, let's figure this out. And if you have never gone through and figured out the math on this stuff, don't feel bad. I didn't. It took me 5, 6, 7 years to go through and figure out this math. But if you go through and figure out the math, you know exactly what you need to do, which is why we're doing it together today. Okay, so 73,000 divided by 295 per hour is an additional 248 hours in a year, okay? So let's look at this. Let's see how easy this is to obtain. $248 hours divided by 240 days is 1.03 hours. 1.03 additional hours per day, okay? That's all you need to bill in addition to the 2.5 hours that you are currently billing. You get to 3.5 hours, 3.6 hours per day, you can hit $250,000. That's it, okay. Now, the question then becomes, I mean, seriously, that's it, 1.03 additional hours billed per day, and you get up to 250. It's a 3-step process. This is super, super cake, okay? And it only requires an additional 1.1 billed hours per day when you think about it, okay? You get a good system, you make those 2 changes right in the very beginning, bill an additional 1.1 hours a day, you're there, you're at 250. It's not that hard. It's amazing, right? It took me, I'm no genius, let me tell you, it took me like 6, 7 years to figure this out because I'm dumb as a rock, but this is all it takes, okay? Okay, so then the question becomes, how, so how do you find 1.03 hours, okay? How do you do that? Like, how do you find additional clients to get to the 1.03 hours? The easiest way to do this is to increase your ability to sell and to close, okay? So these are kind of technical terms. Selling is the entire process of getting somebody to hire you. Closing is the process once you've convince the person that they should buy from you, then you have to actually get money in exchange, right? That's where they have to pay, right? So selling is the emotional component of this. People buy because of how they feel, but they close. They will actually give you money based on logic. So you have to go through and you have to know the close and how to deal with objections, how to deal with things logically to get people to actually pay you, okay? So most of the time, when I talk with my friends, they will close, you know, the people they meet with, so the people that actually become their clients, they'll close, let's say it's a 50% rate, okay? And so I used to be down at like 25%, okay, when I was doing free consultations. I think it was 25 to 30, 35%. 35% in like a good month, right? So it's probably like 25 to 35%. Then we made some changes, got it up to 50%. Now we're at 60%, 65%, but 25% of those people we don't actually want. So sorry, I'm getting a little too much into our numbers. But what I'm saying is you see that there are lots of people that are closing maybe to 50% rate. So they have if they get better at the close, right, and they go from a 50% rate to a 75% rate, I guarantee you're going to be able to do that 1.03 additional hours per day. There's just no doubt about it. You might be able to do that if you go from 50% to 60%, okay? Just some seriously minor changes, increases 10%, you can get that, you can get up to $250,000 a year, okay, as a solo. So you need to know sales and you need to know closing, but especially closing, okay? And again, closing is closing people with logic, working through, this is why you should hire me, this is why you should pay the amount of money that I'm gonna charge you. Yes, these are your objections, you don't have enough money, you can't afford it, you wanna think about it. Whatever the excuse is, whatever the objection is, you need to know how to overcome those things in order, and logically, do it logically, in order to get that person to actually hire you and to pay you money, okay? That is the number one skill that you should have as an attorney. We as attorneys don't like to think of ourselves as salespeople. We want to think of ourselves as kind of artisans, but we're not. We're salespeople. We sell concepts and arguments to judges. We sell them to mediators. We sell them to other attorneys. We sell them to our clients. We sell everything all the time. So just embrace that and get good at it. And when it comes to potential clients, learn how to sell them. It's just one more aspect of the selling that we do as attorneys. And Dylan, would you mind getting me the book over there, please? So Dylan is going to get the book that I suggest for people when they want to learn how to close. So this is Grant Cardone's The Closer's Survival Guide. I have read this book, I think at last count, 23 times. It goes through, and I don't know if you want to try to get any of this, but he goes through all of the closes, right? All of the objections that people have. Okay, and it tells you how to deal with every one of those objections. Now, what you need to do as an attorney is actually go through and say, okay, these are the general objections in the Closer Survival Guide, but we have different variations because we're attorneys, we're not selling like iPads or something. So you want to go through and you want to figure out the objections that you get, right, that you encounter, and you want to write them all down, and then you want to go back and look in here and say, oh, that objection is like this objection, and then you want to change it around, right? And then you want to write down exactly how you're going to respond to that objection, okay? And then you're going to make an inventory of that. And I guarantee when you do this and you role play this, even just writing it down and then writing down your response, you're going to close 10% better, at least, just that one exercise, okay? Then if you role play it, like you sit there and you think every day you spend 10 minutes, okay, this is this objection, this is how I'm gonna counter that objection, this is what I'm gonna say, and then you do that with potential clients, you're gonna go up, right? You're gonna get better at it. Now, what we do is we role play this stuff every morning. The first thing we do in the office is a sales meeting, and we role play with the objections to make sure that our intake team is sharp and that our attorneys are sharp, and we can close clients so we can serve those clients. Okay, like I said, 24 times. I have read this book far more than I have read the scriptures that I believe are essentially the blueprint for a good life, okay? Like this is really the blueprint for closing clients and making money as an attorney. Okay, so again, if you want to go up to $250,000 a year, fairly simple process. Numbers are absolutely doable, okay? And then this skill set is the one you really need to master by doing it. So if you want a copy of this book, let me know. You can email me, marco@utdivorceattorney.com. You can call into the office. It's 801. Nope, that's my cell phone. 801-685-9999, 801-685-9999, and tell them, hey, Marco said he'd get me the Closer Survival Guide. I got a bunch of copies of these. I give them out to attorneys and professionals all the time. So happy to help you any way I can. And yeah, please give me a call. I'd love to be able to help you. Hopefully this has inspired you to realize that wherever you are as a solo, okay, you're not making enough money, or you're very, very likely not making enough money. And a few simple tweaks and a few simple things is going to get you from where you are exponentially higher, at least $250,000 a year. So hopefully this is helpful to you, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot.